welcome. So, we're moving on to a very important subject in relation to self regulation. I just put up this little quote by Dr. Basil van de Coort. He is well known within the trauma field and in relation to really the mind body connection, and has written a really important book. If you are very interested in this kind of work and understanding it at a really deep level and would like to become a little more trauma informed, and you may have heard of it, it's called The Body Keeps the Score. And he writes here, self-regulation depends on having a friendly relationship with your body. Without it, you have to rely on external regulation from either medication, drugs, alcohol, constant reassurance, or compulsive compliance with the wishes of others. And where we're going to approach this sense of becoming friends with our body is through what's known as interoception. I briefly mentioned it in one of the previous lessons, but now we're going to dive in a little deeper. And we're truly going to learn how to embrace our body sensations as emotional wisdom and really looking at it from a perspective of it being very creative body language. And there's a reason why I have waited this long to kind of dive in this deep. And that is because moving towards a place where we no longer fear how we feel really requires the ability to feel resourced. Because a lot of times we can, when we kind of reawaken this sense of becoming friends with our body, if we're not used to feeling sensations, or if we've kind of lived from, say, our throat up, so we've kind of not really lived in our bodies for however long, then this can overwhelm the nervous system very easily. So when we feel resourced in how we can regulate ourselves by first noticing when we're becoming dysregulated, and knowing then like what your ventral vagal state really looks like, and the tools that you've already been implementing are really there to help you move towards this in a very safe way. So it's all about keeping safety within the system. So the system meaning the autonomic nervous system. So here we have it that self-regulation is really about integration. So there's this kind of myth out there that being self-regulated means that, we feel calm. And really that's not true. We want to feel authentic. And when we're feeling in an authentic way, it's basically making nothing that arises is wrong. That no matter what is arising, we welcome it. We hold it in the same way that we would a joyful moment, that we would something happy, that we would like something that feels good, so that it doesn't become about things being good or bad. Things are just what they are. And it's really how we can learn to hold space for ourselves, to allow whatever is arising to feel safe, seen, and heard. And we do that, again, through this ability to resource ourselves so that we have this indication of this sense of feeling aroused, feeling this sense of moving in the direction of sympathetic arousal, and being able to decipher in wise ways as to, okay, is it necessary for this moment? Or is this coming from somewhere very old, but just with like a boatload of stuff coming with it? And then what we can do is learn to like drop the anchor when we're in that boat, feel the waves without reacting to them, so that we always have this felt sense of being anchored to a state where we feel relaxed yet alert with a sense of stability and ease. It's not always going to be the case. But when we get a feel for how we can re-arrive towards that ventral state, towards that state of feeling a sense of stability and ease, even as the boat rocks, then it's much, much easier for us to integrate whatever is arising. So we're no longer avoiding it, running away from it, suppressing it, making it right or wrong. So we resource and we resource, and then we resource a little bit more. And part of that then is then being able to reorientate ourselves to this time, to this place, and use even that as a resource. So when we move towards the body and sensing the body, knowing that we can at any point in time change that journey inwards towards the outer world, meaning our exteroception, and using what is stable on the outside to help regulate what feels a little shaky on the inside. So we're not just now talking about states of arousal. We are also now establishing and trying to develop states of integration. And that when we speak about this in relation to our brain and neuroplasticity, that when we intentionally cultivate certain states, then they become our trait. So it ends up just becoming hardwired into our system. So things that we can kind of invite in and work towards cultivating is this hardwiring peacefulness, hardwiring the sense of inner stability, of having that available to us, being able to hardwire a felt sense of this undercurrent of stillness, of tranquility within the body. So the more we practice these states, the more they become a hardwired trait. And just remembering when we talk about neuroplasticity and our brain, it's like it's like firing and wiring, right? So whatever fires together wires together. So what we want to do is like form these really strong threads of what states we would like to integrate and have more access to and have available to us, and how we can begin to cultivate those for ourselves. So remember, it's not always about feeling calm. Too many times people move in the direction of calm, but what they're really doing is suppressing. They're trying to shove. It's like the duck's feet under the water. They look calm on the top, but underneath they're like do 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 do, going busy, or whatever is going on. And true calm really is a state where you feel a sense of positive energy with it. So it's not about putting on this face of like, right now, I really need to be calm and kind of suppressing everything else. It's like, let yourself be with whatever is arising, even for just a few seconds, and trust that it will change to support you. So that's how we begin to play with integration. We touch what may be rocking the boat whilst staying connected to that anchor that brings us back to our ventral vagal state. Okay. So let's look at this, okay, in the sense that when we talk about this interoception, so a lot of our body-mind people, like Peter Levine, for instance, would have written an awful lot about this. And one of his books is called In the Unspoken Voice. He also wrote a book called Waking the Tiger, where they state that like sensations actually form the bedrock for a child's maturation and development towards authentic autonomy and independence. So even as children, we tend to, and children regulate differently to us. They regulate through play and through like their whole sensory system, and through and even how they speak is really through their sensations. And if we were denied that as children, then we learned to like that, like cut ourselves off from the neck down and kind of stay away from what we might have felt in the body, kind of and hid up in the chambers of our mind, because maybe feelings were just too much to feel and we didn't know how to process them. Maybe we didn't have any help in learning how to process our sensations and our feelings. And in truth, we don't know how to do it when we're first born. When we don't automatically know how to do this, we learn it from our caregivers or not. But the beauty of it is we can relearn for ourselves if we didn't get that. And then we can move into living in way more authentic ways where we can have that balance of independence and interdependence. So as we grow, we are defined by how our body interacts with our environment. And from these sensations, thoughts, and words, stories are derived. So from these sensations, our thoughts, words, and stories are derived. And we've spoken about this a little further along the way too, when we were talking about neuroception and how really the brain's perception of like what's safe and what's dangerous is really the precursor of a whole chain of events with regards to perceptions, thoughts, behaviors, and stories. And sensations hold a huge part to that because we have the brain's interpretation of those sensations. And if the brain is interpreting it from an old map, then the thoughts and words and stories are going to be aligned with that. But when the neuroception, when we can be in a place where we really have this more conscious awareness about the sensations ourselves, then we can have what's called our informed neuroception. And for consciousness to truly unfold, okay, it happens through the development of body awareness, of learning to understand the nuances and the meaning of our internal physical sensations and our emotional feelings as well. And I would add there the nudges from our autonomic nervous system. So the nuances from our internal physical sensations, emotional feelings, but also those big nudges from our autonomic nervous system. So the reason why this is such a big part of self-regulation is because it's closely tied in with our vagus nerve. And we now know that it's also known as the 10th cranial nerve and was also named initially by Charles Darwin in the 1800s as the pneumogastric nerve. And it plays a huge role in interoceptive awareness. And as we go on, we're going to see how this begins to play out. But we can look at it in light of like the transmission of our interoceptive signals, because basically it is the pathway that these signals travel to the brain via the vagus nerve. So when we talk about the regulation of emotion, of our emotions and our physiological responses, we know now that the vagus nerve is basically the parasympathetic braking system. So without vagal tone, we lose the brakes. So our nervous system can get very, very overwhelmed very, very quickly with emotions, so with our physiological sensations, and of course then our other physical symptoms can begin to increase the stress response, the heartbeat, the shallow breathing, the fidgetiness, the kind of busy mode, the hypervigilance comes in. So we already know that it has got a huge role within the mind-body connection. So the vagus nerve is sometimes referred to as the wandering nerve. And that is simply because it innervates so many visceral organs within our body, basically every organ of our body, including the brain. And its influence on interoceptive awareness helps to facilitate the mind-body connection because of this. Because when the vagus nerve is activated through practices such as your deep diaphragmatic breathing that we've spoken about, we have been training the box breath as well, but we also have it through our meditation practices, okay? And it can really enhance our interoceptive awareness by promoting relaxation and calming the mind, which allows individuals to better perceive their internal bodily sensations. So the connection is just so strong there when we foster it, when we can foster that vagal tone and work in the direction of stimulating the vagus nerve. So it has a huge impact on resilience and well-being as well. So a healthy vagus nerve is associated with increased resilience to stress. And we've shown this through our stress waves and that window of tolerance, and how through allowing ourselves to experience enough stress that we feel resourced to cope with, it increases our ability to feel more resilient and to really build in resilience within that system, within our nervous system. And they're closely tied to one's ability to accurately sense and respond to their internal state. So that as we're learning, when we feel that tension, that change in our breath, whatever it is, that movement, that tightness in our face, that kind of pinpointed eyes, the black and white thinking, we can feel the shifts in our energy. So when we are very in tune with all of this, it's much, much easier for us to self-regulate because we can attend to ourselves more appropriately. And then when it comes to our therapeutic applications, interventions targeting the vagus nerve, such as the vagus nerve stimulation. Okay, so there's these electrical devices that you can purchase, but you don't even need to go that far. You really just need to apply what you feel works for you on a regular basis through a lot of the examples that I'm giving you within this program. And there are so many variations of things out there, but what's really important is to stick to the things that really work for you. Remember specificity, so individuality, specificity, and then repetition is really, really key when it comes to building vagal tone. And of course, then building in that positive neuroplasticity and moving in the direction of parasympathetic dominance, so that ventral vagal state. And let's move on. So the O is missing there. Interoceptive awareness. Every time I typed in interoceptive or interoception, it auto-corrected because it doesn't acknowledge it as a spelling. So excuse it there. That's supposed to be interoceptive awareness. So it helps us understand and respond to and communicate with the body's internal language. That's really it. It's really just a sounding board for what's going on. And through that, then we can also perceive the physical sensations that are linked to our emotions, mood regulation, decision-making, and informed self-care. It is involved in our ability to empathize through enabling us to stay with our experiences, okay, to accept, monitor, and modify whatever is arising in a non-reactive way. So we're able to, no matter how honed in we're getting or too close to something that we're getting, and we're feeling whatever we're feeling, when we begin to feel like we're moving into that state of arousal, then we can always invite ourselves back, knowing that we are resourced, we can reorientate at any time, and we can restore safety to that nervous system so that we can stay in a place where we can truly listen to somebody without all of our stuff interfering with it. Because what is empathy at the end of the day? Empathy is just our ability to listen without our own stuff influencing it. So it's that ability to just listen and listen and listen. And while we're listening to somebody else's story, to somebody else's body, to somebody else's nervous system, we learn to listen to our own as well, so that we can just let it be this very clear space that isn't really being influenced or impacted by our state, that we are managing our own state whilst we're openly listening to somebody else's, free of our own stuff coming in and influencing it. Such an important quality. And it becomes this gentle dance. It becomes this gentle dance. And remember, there's nothing right or wrong with it. And if you've got a soft heart like mine, and if you're as sensitive as me, then this is definitely going to become a dance that you're really going to learn to waltz with, rather than try and constantly doing a two-step with. And you'll feel the rhythms change, your own rhythm change, the person's rhythm change, and something really special begins to happen when they feel heard, by the safety of your system. It's a real felt sense. So I'm looking forward to hearing your feedback somewhere in the future when this happens, and maybe it's already happened for you, and maybe you've already received that too. What a gift. What a gift.